welcome to the channel. It's Yvonne from Ginger Chick Rehab. I'm so glad to have you back checking out what Chris and I are up to. So in today's video, we're doing some smaller pieces of furniture, just some extra places to set stuff, to store stuff. Yep, we look at all sizes of furniture where we are out thrifting at the thrift store. So we are going to share the process with you all of what we do to these items to get them ready to resell. So I was definitely excited to find this piece. I would love to find these pieces all day long, but that is not what we never run across. Little tables like this, you know, those entryway tables behind your sofa type tables. And of course, for $14.99, you think it would be wonderful condition. Oh no, but no, there's a lot of wonkiness, but at least they kept the screw and taped it to the top of the table. So super excited to make this one over. And as you can see, definitely is worst for wear. First things first, we need to find where this screw goes. And you'd think since this leg is all wobbly, it would be that one, but nope, it goes into the opposite corner. So I have to get my Allen wrenches out. I'm going to start tightening some of them up and seeing which ones actually need to be fixed. Fortunately, it's not as easy as just tightening these screws up. Oh, that was a surprise. Some electrical tape around the base. So yeah, definitely need to put some new plugs in those holes to make a tighter fit. Now, two of the legs did tighten up just with tightening up the Allen wrench, but this one was still kind of giving me fits. Even though those bolts were nice and tight, I still had a little bit of wonkiness going on with this leg. I'm going to go ahead and relieve the pressure of the screws, unscrew them. It still doesn't take it all the way off. It's still attached somehow. So all I'm going to do is put some Titebond glue. I'm going to work it down into that joint and clamp it off. And hopefully that'll be the fix. It just has come loose. I just have to get this electrical tape off. In theory, that was a great idea, I guess, but nope, it wasn't going to be enough to hold that weight. You can purchase these little wooden plugs or little pieces of dowel. I'm pretty sure that these are probably thrifted because I don't pass them up, because you never know what size you're going to need when it comes to a piece. So all I'm going to do is just take some Titebond glue them into place, let that dry completely overnight before screwing or drilling a new hole so that we can screw that bolt back in so it'll have that nice tight fit. Now that problem's dealt with, now it's time to deal with the other problems. And you can see this is like that pressed board, MDF board, not completely a solid wood piece, but it has definitely a lot of marks on it. So I'm going to go in with the Orbital sander and just sand all those areas smooth. I do have a few little areas around this lip. I didn't want anything to take away that curve, so I'm just going to go ahead and hand sand it. Just using some 220 sandpaper is all this type of board needed. But yep, you can tell by how it smoothed out the top of it, that's how many watermarks were on the top of this. Before I get this piece all cleaned up, I'm going to go ahead and use the air compressor to blow off any of that extra sanding dust. Now that we've done all that prep work, our finished prep work is to get it cleaned up with just some Superclean, some hot water. Now when it comes to this type of board, you just want to make sure that your rag is not sopping wet, because that press board has a habit of wanting to soak up and rise up, and you just sanded that smooth. So make sure that when you're washing it off, you're having a damp cloth. So to prep this piece before even painting it, I'm going in with some Rust-Oleum paint and primer. I find that the Rust-Oleum spray paint just adheres to this MDF board really well. So this is how I'm going to prime this piece. So now actually to paint this piece, we're going to be using the black Onyx ready-to-use paint off the shelf from Walmart. And I know you're all thinking, well, it's already black. Well, I use the Rust-Oleum spray paint as the primer, and that soaks into the MDF board, so that's not going to be a finished coat. So I still need to give it a nice coat of black paint. So we're actually trying out our TrueCoat 360 handheld sprayer with some polycrylic for the top coat. We have not tried this out before to see if this machine how smooth and what the finish would look like putting top coat in this type of a sprayer. TrueCoat 360 handheld sprayer is definitely a lot more powerful than what your Harbor Freight hopper types would be, but I do think if you stand back far enough, it gave it a wonderful coating of that polycrylic. So now I'm just going in with some 220 sandpaper. I want to distress some of these edges, take them down to the wood. That way, if anybody accidentally bumps them in anyway, you already have that look. So yep, it did a great top coat, and now I'm just going in and distressing all these sharp edges. And then after getting all those edges sanded down to the wood where I want them, I'm going back in with some fine grit steel wool. And what I'm doing here is I'm opening up that polycrylic. One, I'm making sure that everything is nice and smooth, but I want to go ahead and wax this piece. So if I just left it just the top coat's a protective coating, so if I didn't go in with the steel wool, the wax would just be kind of just hanging out, laying on top of the polycrylic, and I really wanted it to soak into this piece. Now the sanding's all done, I'm going back in with that air compressor and blow all that sanding dust away. Why, yes, if you were guessing that it was going to be antiquing wax that I was going to use, you are right. So I just cannot help but love what antiquing wax does to black paint. It just richens it up, kind of tones down that blackest of black, but doesn't make it quite brown. It just leaves it with such a nice finish. So I just put some on, wax it in, and then wipe off the excess. And then it also just definitely makes where those raw edges where I got down to the wood, how it just makes that wood just pop even more. Next piece, this was a marketplace find. Somebody was having an estate sale, and today 3, some of the furniture pieces weren't selling, so they were willing to basically give them away. So we paid $10 for this corner hutch. Corner hutches are not something that come along very often, so I was super excited to snag this for $10. But you guessed it, yep, it has needs also. One of the drawers has been cracked. So I'm pretty sure with my guess that you can tell that this is a handmade piece. With that being said, I definitely think this is one of those primitive type pieces of furniture. Before getting to have fun at painting it and making it look primitive, we got to deal with this door. So we both agreed that, yes, I don't think that these door knobs are doing much for this piece. So Chris is going to go ahead and pop those off, and we will be finding something else for knobs. So luckily the crack happened right where the two joints were put together. So yep, just some tight bond glue, glue that seam back together, clamp it, let it sit overnight, and then it should be strong and good to go. And now he's going to deal with, there's a little bit of molding up here that kind of sticks out. So not everybody's walls may not be the same. This was probably a custom piece for their own home. So Chris is just going to go ahead and cut them even with the cabinet itself. Now that the door fix was dealt with and then the little tweaks of that molding, he can go in with some 220 sandpaper and sand this. Now this has got a heavy coat of like a polycrylic type that is definitely not a smooth finish, so he's going to go in and spend some time making sure that when he's sanding it, it's getting that nice and smooth. After using the air compressor to blow all that sanding dust probably onto the floor where we're just going to sweep it up later, but now it needs to get cleaned off with some Superclean, some hot water. This piece is just going to get that black onyx ready to use paint right off the shelf from Walmart, and yep, we're going to paint the back also. You just never know what somebody's corner is going to be in their home, so making sure that this is thoroughly painted. And then after flipping over, getting all the other areas, sometimes you do have to go back into a brush. Still, those little crevices are hard to get to with a sprayer. But now it is getting the top coat of polycrylic. And so far, so good. The TrueCoat handheld sprayer is working out as long as you stand back far enough and are ready with the paintbrush just in case there's any drips. Now that this is dry, the polycrylic, usually I wait overnight for the polycrylic to be good and dry before going back in to sand it. It just all depends on how the day is going. So now the details that you don't see on this piece are some sharp little edges that weren't routed that I can definitely just take a 220 sandpaper. Actually, I think I have a 150 sandpaper because that TrueCoat put a nice generous helping of polycrylic on these pieces. So definitely needed that stronger sandpaper to get down to that sharp edge to pop some of this wood, which is really going to make this look like that primitive type of piece. And now that I have it all distressed the way I want it, I'm going back in with some steel wool, some fine grit steel wool, opening up that polycrylic because, yep, I want to be able to put some of that antiquing wax on this piece also. So now it's just time to get the doors back on with these square head screws. Who does that? But yep, hinges on, and then we'll drill some new holes from some new hardware. Third piece is a Goodwill find for $25, but I know that a lot of people like that little extra workspace, extra storage space, so I definitely was happy to run across this. It is in actually really good shape. Now remember, I said really good shape, not perfect shape, really good shape. So the first thing we are going to do is try to figure out how it comes apart to paint this. And since there was no hinges, trying to figure out how to remove the doors is another story. definitely need to get this up on the work table so we can get a better look of how this was put together. So luckily, as you can tell, it's kind of maybe an IKEA piece. It has those same little turnables that you can take that cutting board off. And so, yeah, we were trying to figure out how to be able to take these knobby things off because as you saw, one was broken off. Now these actually just screwed in place, and then there's another piece of metal in there that was a kind of a two-way screw type. So Chris is using an Allen wrench trying to remove that because we're just going to go ahead and fill in those holes. I know it would be nice to have extra hooks, but that would be something that might prevent somebody from buying it because it wouldn't fit in the space that they had. And now that we know that this is one of those put together type of pieces where you can start taking pieces and parts apart. So another Allen wrench, another bolt screw that can be removed, and that's going to loosen up that top piece of wood and allow us to be able to remove the doors. And yes, we did remove the towel rod also. That definitely stuck out really far. And then Chris is popping off what's left of the little pegs that hid all the screws. I'm going to actually keep 2 of them and not fill those in just where the doors are able to remove. So in case somebody does need to remove the drawers for whatever reasons, that they will know where to remove them instead of trying to figure it out like we did. And I definitely would love to clean these feet up, give these wheels a little bit more of an industrial vibe by taking away that shiny of the metal. And there is a little bit of rust on them that needs to be cleaned up. Yep, we're going to go with a little bit more of an industrial look on this piece. So we're going to remove those hardware, those handles, and go from that shiny chrome to a nice black. So all the hardware that we've taken off any of these 4 pieces is getting cleaned up with Dawn dish soap, hot water. I let it soak a little bit, let it work off any of that grime that might be left behind on it, and then get it all cleaned up. And yep, I do keep the little screws and whatnot in a little bowl. After making sure that it is thoroughly dry on both sides, no water leaking out, we can move on to spray paint them. But we want to keep these wheels nice. They have a gray tone to it. It won't leave any black marks. You don't want to paint that because yeah, it'll leave black marks onto your floor. And so yep, just taking the time to tape off that outer edge of that wheel. A lot of times our go-to is just that Rust-Oleum paint and primer in the flat black to spray hardware up. Just keeps it simple. We most of the time reuse the pieces that we have. It definitely keeps it cost efficient. And then to seal that black paint in after it's dry, just some Rust-Oleum clear coat. Now the cutting board is in wonderful shape. Nobody used it as a cutting board. It does have some water damage. There's some marks on it, but I don't really see any cut marks from knives at all. I think just a 220 sandpaper will just smooth anything out. Any of the discoloration that you got going on there will be just enough. Not only are those screws that were keeping the cutting board on the top down, but all these little number tags are definitely a dead giveaway that this was a put together by number type of piece. Definitely have some large holes that I need to fill in, so I'll be mixing up some Durley Noir putty, but for this one I'm definitely going to go ahead and keep one of those pegs to hide where that screw is that holds those doors in place. So now I'm just going to mix up some of the Durham water putty. If you're not familiar with Durham water putty, it comes in powder form and you can just mix as you go how much you need. So because of these holes being quite large, I'm going to go ahead and mix it up a little bit drier so that it's not running out. I'm just using a tongue depressor stick to put it in there. So I'm really going to pack it in, make sure that I've got that hole filled up, and then leave a generous amount on the outside. I'll be able to sand it off, but I definitely want to make sure that hole is filled in. And then since we're spraying a lot of these pieces today, I did spend the time using Dollar Tree contact paper and masking tape. I want to keep that inside. That inside is in great shape. There's no reason to paint it. And now that my Durham water putty is dry, I'm going to go in and start to sand just some 220 sandpaper. This actually for a together by number type of piece is super heavy, and that's super nice. I don't know what type of wood it is, but it's nice, but it is really shiny, so I need my paint to have something to grab onto, so I definitely need to get this sanded down. Just some 220 sandpaper. I do have this little lip here that I need to go in with some 220 sandpaper and hand sand, making sure that I get that scuff sanded so it accepts the paint also. I know the prepping of a piece is not always the funnest part, but that is what makes your paint stick and your finished product looked so nice. So now we made it this far, everything's prepped, but we just need to get it cleaned off with some Superclean again, with some hot water, just getting any kind of debris, after I blew it off with the air compressor, I wanted to make sure my sanding dust was all gone. I just want to make sure there's not any residue left behind. And especially even on the pieces that I'm not going to paint, like this shelf and the inside of this drawer, I want to make sure that they're good and clean also. So yep, it's that same black onyx paint. It is a nice paint. We have good luck with this paint, even for it just being right off the shelf from Walmart. So, and actually all we're going to be doing on this piece is painting the body of this little cabinet. And it's getting that same top coat of polycrylic. I hope you all know that just because I separate these all out into 4 different videos so you can see the complete of one of the pieces at the time, that we really do these one right after the other. When it comes to this top coat, they're already been painted. We're really not cleaning out our sprayer that many times, and it's really not that big of a deal to clean out that sprayer. This piece did take that top coat a little bit differently. I don't know if it was the way that it was sprayed on, but definitely ended up having to do a lot of brushing out of the polycrylic. But you know, it was one of those things we want to figure out how to be a little bit more cost efficient with the polycrylic. And then the Harbor Freight hopper with the polycrylic takes forever to wait for the air compressor to regenerate. So I guess I'm not a patient person, so that's why we're kind of testing this out and sharing it with you all. So actually I have to spend a little bit more time sanding on this piece. It's pretty smooth. I think I got all the polycrylic brushed out, but there were some spots that I'm going to have to sand a little bit heavier. But I'm doing that same distressing on these corners. Oh my goodness, this is really going to tie. Yep, it's going to be a 2-tone piece, but wait till y'all see it together. And actually my original plans for this piece was not to distress it at all, just sand that down, put a clear coat on it with some clear wax. But you know, sometimes things happen and you have to change what your game plan is in the middle of everything that you think you want to do. So never get discouraged. Just reroute your thinking and think, okay, now what next? Now that didn't happen the way I wanted it to, now I have to think of something else. So, but I always have my faithful antiquing wax that is going to tie this and make it beautiful. Let's see if I did a good enough job of taping off and applying that contact paper. Do you all like, okay, I hope no spray got underneath this. Now I get to start putting this back together. So just painting that hardware is definitely going to give it that industrial type of vibe. The 2 tones definitely going to give it, and not putting the handle on the wrong side will definitely make a little bit of difference. But yep, I'm so happy when we can reuse hardware if it is in great shape. Now I can go ahead and replace those little screws that were on the top of this. Yep, they screw right into that top. And I actually put the top back on the cutting board back onto the cabinet itself before oiling it. I didn't want the chance of any oil residue being on my hands or from touching it, getting onto the cabinet itself while the paint is still curing. Our last and final piece. Yes, look at this cute little extra. It's just extra. I just absolutely love the little 4 little drawers on it. Got some decorative space down on the bottom. Just a nice place to set stuff. Yep, this is definitely a multi-purpose piece, but you can definitely tell that the top itself has been repainted because it's definitely a different color. And yep, I did pay $25 for it at a Bibles for Mission thrift store. So now the first thing I did when I took the 4 drawers out, when I went to take the hardware off the drawers, is it has these little stoppers that it seems like a little bit of overkill for as lightweight and little as these drawers are, and half of them are broken off, so I'm just going to go ahead and remove them. Remember, when it comes to thrifted pieces of furniture, there's always a reason people donate it. Yep, this definitely has some structural issues on the bottom. It is cracked and just not enough that glue is going to hold it into place. So Chris is actually going to make another piece of wood to attach it to so it gives that strength back to it. Okay, now it's come to the time that I have to see why somebody painted a layer of paint on top of this. Of course, I'm hoping that it's going to be like some type of real wood, but the weight of it, I'm pretty sure it's not going to be. So of course, nope, it's just that press board with a little piece of wood on top of it. So yep, I already had some damage that was hiding underneath the paint. And so sanding it was just causing, at least I'm going to get it flat, but we are going to flip it over and see if it's possible to remove it and replace this top. Well, I do see some reason that, yes, we've got some tightening down of some more of those bolts with the Allen wrench, but no, this top is actually inset, so trying to remove it would just destroy the piece. So we might as well just, as we got it over, tighten these back up and work with what we have. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish scuff sanding the rest of the piece, making sure that I have it so that my paint has something to grab onto. It doesn't really have, there's no shininess or anything, but just to, as a precaution, I want something for my paint to stick onto. I'm going to be painting the entire drawer itself, and even if I wasn't, I really like to use the air compressor to get into those corners to make sure that there's no dust or anything hiding out in there that was just going to get painted in. So since this is MDF board, I'm going to go ahead and spray this with paint and primer, that Rust-Oleum spray paint. That's going to give it a good base. Now I have other plans for the body of this, but for that top, it's going to get that black onyx on the top along with that polycrylic to seal it in. Yes, your eyes do not deceive you. That is red. Yep, I am starting off painting these drawers red with Dixie Belle's Barn Red. Now, a while back, I was given a whole bunch of items from a viewer, Kelly, and then in the haul was a beautiful red dresser that just needed to be tweaked a little bit, and I actually had really good reviews on that, but I haven't come across a piece of furniture that I have envisioned red. But when I saw this, I definitely knew that I could make a dark top and I could paint the body red. So as I work little by little on this piece, what I can envision, I know I want the drawers red, I want the main part of the body, but I wasn't really sure about that bottom area where the decorative, if I'm going to leave that black or paint that red also. We'll have to wait and see into the final reveal if I left it black or if I painted that bottom red. You can see since I undercoated this black, putting the red on, I'm only going to need 2 coats. But when I come into that second coat, I'm using a mister bottle, I'm using a soft bristle brush with that Dixie Belle paint. I don't know the definition of it or anything. It's kind of like the chalk paint. It goes on a lot smoother if I wet it down first. So now my next step is I don't want my red and my black to look so contrasting. So to blend it all together, yep, antiquing wax. And the antiquing wax, especially when it comes to putting it on these drawers and these slats, it's definitely going to, the brown's going to stick in there. I'm going to rub it on that paint and it's going to just give it that little bit of an aged look. Now I want to do that same antiquing wax on the top of this, but then I decided that I wanted to distress those edges. I think that will just tie that in with the slats on the drawers themselves. So just taking some 220 sandpaper, going ahead and sanding down, well, I would like to say wood, but I would just sanding down to the lightness. I can't say that I've ever really seen hardware like this where I put the screw back in and then it has a little nut on the inside, a very little nut, and then have to hold on to that nut to tighten down the screw. But hey, it works and they seem to be on there very well. So I hope you enjoyed today's video of making over these medium size furniture pieces. I'm happy when we run across them in the thrift store because yes, they're usually a quick seller. The corner cabinet maybe not as fast, but I definitely love to try this one black. We had a white one about the same size and it sat for a little while, so I thought, you know what, maybe people thought the white one was a display piece because yeah, I have most of my pieces in my, yeah. Anyway, so yes, so tried this one black. I had that detail that I knew that could pop. Beautiful, got some cabinetry at the bottom of it from some extra storage. And then we got the little rolling cart island, and I know everybody's like probably put the hooks back on. Well, I think the hooks kind of dated it and made it odd, but a lot of people are looking for places in their kitchen or their extra that they can roll in and out of a spot. So if you put all that stuff on there, you may not be able to fit it into a space. So I just left that good enough as is, and if somebody purchases it, they can add. Plus, if I add more to it, it ups the cost. So, and then that entry table, that sofa table, great find. Yep, I knew it was going to be needy. So, but just your simple black, simple classic colors are what sells for us. So, you know, with the retail booth, we have to do what sells for us. You know, having a piece of furniture sit for months and months because we colored it, you just can't, because then you get too much at your house of inventory done. And then, okay, so I did color a piece and I did do that red. Oh my goodness, I love that. And yeah, there are just certain pieces that cry out to me that they just need to be a different color, and if they do, I will do them. But yes, I absolutely love that red. We had that one little dresser desk. Well, we had that one dresser that I had gotten from viewer Kelly. I cleaned it up a little bit, that's all it needed, and then the person that actually bought it, we actually delivered it for them, which is usually odd, but anyway. So she needed some extra storage in her kitchen, so she liked the red, so that's what kind of gave me that idea of like, hey, I should do this red. Somebody might like it in their kitchen. You know, you always can use some extra in your kitchen or anywhere. I mean, it's definitely a versatile little piece, so I definitely did not pass that up for that price range. So I hope that you enjoyed. I gave you a little story of why. I get a lot of questions, you know, about stuff like that. So thanks for watching today's video, guys. And as always, give me which one of the 4 that we made over was your favorite. And thank you for being part of our YouTube family. And if you are new and checking out our furniture flipping for the first time and you liked what you saw, please hit that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know when we've uploaded a new video. And we will see you next time, guys, and you can see what we're up to. Bye.